exposing people to a wide variety of views and so on, and really important. So you're really doing important work. And what you're showing, and your appreciative listeners calling and mentioned you on many occasions, you're showing that Jamaican people, there are lots of people who are interested in serious stuff. It's not just the rearing and the excitement and entertainment people are interested in. They're interested in this one. Jamaica, that's what he's saying now.
Yeah, you know, it's like
that's good.
Pretty something.
Yeah, I get tired.
Okay, that was an excerpt taken from the Religious High Club program where Muta was being interviewed by Ian Boyne. It was 8:30 p.m. on November 23rd, 2009, and we huddled around a small TV to watch the premiere of Simply Muta, which was then Muta's new television program on CDM TV. The buzz and excitement were palpable, and I said to myself, big up Muta, for real. Seeing Muta command attention in the prime time television program confirmed the significance of his message, and for me, affirmed his iconic position. Muta Baruka, poet, Rastafari teacher, and philosopher, grew up in Kingston's Raytown and has been performing poetry since the 1970s. His first major single, Every Time I Hear the Song, in 1981, launched him onto Jamaican reggae music scene. Muta explains that it was my teacher who gave a poetry work to do, and I actually wrote a poem and she told me to read it in front of the class. It came out quite good, you know. In those days, it was like the Black Power era. Marcus Garvey Jr. was my teacher. He had an organization that published a magazine, so we started to put poems in that magazine. And another big magazine named Swing. We eventually put poems in a little book called Outcry. Since then, he has released 12 albums, toured extensively, and collaborated with several reggae artists. His poetry is published in Muta Baruka, the next poem and the first poems, and comprises the major collection of his early poems from the 1970s and those written between 1980 and 2002. So, even from those youthful submissions to Swim magazine, Muta has consistently used popular media to propel his work and to share his ideas. In 1992, IRFM invited Muta to host a radio program that would play reggae from around the world and different African musical styles. In commenting on the move from radio to television, Baz Walters captured it well when he wrote that, despite a reputation for unapologetically voicing his unconventional perception on a wide range of topics, which for some people are discomforting, whatever Muta does is always highly anticipated. I can imagine Muta uncomfortable with the use of the word icon and cleverly reclaiming and redefining the language so it resonates as being authentic to his experience. In keeping with the Rastafari way of putting I at the center of political and spiritual revolution, I argue that as an icon, the icon continually expands the boundaries of our thinking with radical perspectives on rigid ideas. In the introduction to his album, Check It, Muta says, of course we can write about the flowers and the bees and birds and trees and lovers in the park and all them something there. But what do you use, you write about them something there, when if you sit down late in a park, man come and shoot you, take away a woman and rape her. The reality out there, we have to write about, the reality out there is different. We have to write about South Africa, England and the youth them in the ghetto. We have to write about all these things. Muta considers his ultimate goal to be bringing a radical black-centered consciousness to Africa, to the African mind in Jamaica and the world. His work encourages consistency in his life choices and pushes for integration between ideology and the lived experience. As he puts it, through art, through daily living, through how we talk, through how we look, through how we perform, we try to bring that African-centered perspective to people So anywhere you go and you ask the people about Muta Baruka, they will tell you, why not bridging into the African thing. During his 18 years on air, he has brought Rastafari to the forefront in ways that present Rasta as having a certain sensibility and a different kind of manifestation. Muta's discussion on religion, for example, has been unfavorable for many as he unabashedly critiques the Catholic Church and the impact of religion on Africa by highlighting its destabilizing effect on black identity. However, the clarity and coherence of his arguments have formed the basis for a powerful counter-ideology for youths seeking an African-centered framework to understand religion, spirituality, and racism. The icon constantly captures the attention and imagination of people across generations with consistency and clarity of purpose. The clarity of purpose has been driven by the social issues around him, the conditions of black people all over the world, and the need for cultural, spiritual, and intellectual awakening. Muta performs his poetry and hosts his radio show, The Cutting Edge, with the ongoing desire to get people to think and question. He explains that when I went there, in my thinking, I couldn't just sit down for 3 hours and just play pure reggae and say nothing. So in playing the music, I started to talk, and eventually the talk became what was driving the show, rather than the music. So I started to talk and give my opinion about Rasta, politics, about anything, and it became a talk show rather than a music show. So I started to play African music, reggae music, and poetry, and just talk. There was no program in Jamaica that delved into African music. So eventually the talking became the main thing because people started to respond to what I was saying. Rarely does the icon set out to be iconic, but rather there's a commitment to doing serious work and being impactful in society. In his words, he lives a certain way, and if he can bring about change, we give thanks. When we talk, when we walk, when we speak, when we eat, when people look at me, we don't divert. We're not an artist and something else. What is my art is what is me. So I don't separate what I say in my poetry and how I live my life, and people understand that. The icon controversially creates and recreates the content of his art form so it remains relevant. Before organic food, low-fat and fat-free were trendy, Muta moved seamlessly from hot-button topics like religion to talk about the politics of food and its centrality to people's overall well-being. In his point, junk food, Muta says strawberry ice cream, raspberry ice cream, demaberry we don't see, ice cream, hot dog ice cream, living the American dream. Junk food filling up the place. This is another disgrace. Junk food filling up the place. This is another disgrace. No good food are going to waste. Muta evokes classic images like that of Humpty Dumpty and uses them to explore more generally the divisions between Jamaica's uptown and downtown, and how those divisions continue to be problematic in a post-colonial, emancipated black country. I sit up on the wall and watch him and watch me. It's a long time I sit up on the wall and watch him and watch me. In pants matching shirt, not even shoes look like it ever touched dirt. So I sit up on the wall and watch him and watch me. Through his poetry and through his programs, Muta is known for provoking content which is always creatively packaged. His ideas pervade the Rastafari community and the general population to the point where the Cutting Edge has become a kind of institution on late-night radio. After years of listening to the Cutting Edge, Simply Muta gave us more direct contact with him. The issues covered on Simply Muta are always critical and pertinent, and he utilizes the visual power of TV to full effect. Those who had not seen it before had an opportunity to put a face to the voice, and I'm sure began to take a new interest in Muta and his revolutionary perspective. Muta has created a distinctively unique identity in his style of dress and his use of language. The African garb, head wraps, and no shoes. His image matches the liberating and revolutionary nature of his work. His image reinforces his ideas and philosophy. His simple language allows him to connect with people at many levels. In one of his poems he says, "A me one does a travel the land with my little butter pan, them not understand." RastafarI of All Music Guide paints a picture of what you see when you look at Muta. Just above his forehead, poet Muta has a strip of white hair that bisects his jet black locks. That is the only white thing about this revolutionary writer, whose every time I hear the sound, bursts through the mellow reggae of the early 80s like a bullet from an AK-47. Performing sans shoes and shirt, Muta's deep voice, uncompromising rants make his a unique, almost fearsome figure, whose melding of poetry and dub music make him seem akin to an Old Testament prophet saying, "Listen or else." Muta's use of popular media has allowed him to give energy and visibility to his radical ideas and philosophy. In sharing his ideas through radio and television, he has effectively highlighted how those media can be used to effect change. The icon conjures strong responses to his ideas. Very often, icons can be the persons you love to hate. Muta is no different. I leave you with a reflection which I think illustrates the rationale behind his rhyme and reason.
When I speak, do you feel weak? When you hear my thoughts, do you feel caught in the web of hopelessness? When I say black, do you feel it's an attack or a lack of understanding on my part or just wrath coming from me? Do you see me as a threat to your safety? When I say white, do you consider that bigotry? If I say I care not about politics, would you consider me an anarchist? If I say no to religion, would that be considered an extension of my misconception about what you think of me? Do you see what I mean? If I said I didn't smoke or take coke, would you take it for a joke and cry, then wonder why I told such a lie? Are you upset because my poems sometimes make you fret about the future of things to come? Would you call me a brute if I wore a suit or said I was cute? Do you think I would be a better writer if my poems were lighter, spoke more about nature or some adventure that gave me pleasure? Would you love me more if I spoke less about the poor and talked about the women I adore? Now, after listening to this, are you looking for a twist or just another rhyme in the next line? The solutions that you seek will not be in the streak of a pen or even 10 lines of mine. The problems are the same, but don't blame me because I see that part of reality that pains and stains the heart. I came into this life with neither guns or knives. I made no laws with all its flaws about black and white and what's wrong from what's right. I speak, I write of what I see, of men holding men in slavery, of color, class and creed, of lust, envy and greed. So don't blame me if when I speak you do feel weak. I did not create hate. Now, tell me this. Would you accuse me of causing a riot if I was quiet? Would you?
Thank you.